When a popular talk show host tries to publicly humiliate Clint Eastwood, he unknowingly walks into a trap he can't escape. What happens when a Hollywood legend shows the world that some things, like real strength, never go out of style? Ethan Rhodes sat in his sleek, high-rise office, staring at the monitor displaying a list of upcoming guests for The Ethan Rhodes Show. His show was one of the most watched late-night talk programs, known for its sharp political angles and aggressive interviews. Clint Eastwood, huh? He mused, swirling a glass of bourbon. His producer, Jenna Myers, adjusted her glasses. Yeah, we pulled some strings. He's got a new film coming out, so his PR team agreed. But, Ethan, if I'm being honest, this could go sideways. Ethan leaned back, smirking. Oh, come on, the guy's a relic. He's 94 years old and Hollywood has moved past his whole gruff cowboy shtick. This is a chance to hold him accountable. Accountable for what? Jenna asked cautiously. Ethan scoffed. 4 decades of toxic masculinity? For glorifying violence in film? For his outdated political views? Hell, for still thinking he's relevant? Jenna hesitated. Look, Ethan, I know you like to push guests, but Eastwood isn't some washed-up actor. He's Clint Eastwood. He's outlasted careers, generations even. This could backfire. Ethan waved a dismissive hand. Please, I'll corner him, make him stumble over his words. The internet will eat it up. Jenna sighed but knew Ethan wouldn't be swayed. The interview was already locked in. The night of the interview, the audience inside the Ethan Rhodes Show studio buzzed with anticipation. Clips of Ethan grilling politicians and celebrities had made him a viral sensation. His fans expected another takedown. Backstage, Clint Eastwood arrived with minimal entourage, just his longtime assistant, Bill Gaines. Despite his age, Eastwood walked with the same deliberate pace he always had. His piercing gaze, though softened with time, still held the weight of 1,000 westerns. You sure you want to do this? Bill asked. Clint gave a half smile. Kid wants to play gunslinger. Might as well show him how it's done. As he stepped onto the set, the crowd erupted in applause, though there were pockets of people clearly skeptical. Ethan rose to greet him, offering a firm handshake, which Clint returned with a grip stronger than expected. Mr. Eastwood, Ethan began, welcome to the show. Good to be here, Clint replied coolly. Ethan leaned back in his chair, eyes gleaming with anticipation. We've got a lot to talk about. Your movies, your views, your legacy. Let's get right into it. The game had begun. Ethan started with the usual pleasantries. You've had one of the longest, most celebrated careers in Hollywood, but times change. Some would say that Hollywood has outgrown the Eastwood archetype, that the silent, stoic, gunslinging man doesn't fit in today's world. What's your take? Clint smirked. Funny thing about eras, Ethan, they don't end just because someone tweets about it. Laughter rippled through the audience, catching Ethan slightly off guard. He kept his smile, but pressed on. Well, let's talk about that. Some of your films, Dirty Harry, Gran Torino, they depict, let's say, a very specific kind of masculinity. Some people today find those portrayals outdated, even problematic. Looking back, do you regret making them? Clint tilted his head slightly. Regret? Number Y told stories people wanted to see. And judging by the fact that Dirty Harry is still being quoted 50 years later, I'd say they still do. The audience murmured in agreement, some clapping. Ethan, sensing his control slipping, shifted tactics. But would you acknowledge that those films promoted a kind of reckless vigilantism? Clint let the question hang for a moment before leaning in slightly. You've got security outside this building, don't you? Ethan frowned. What does that have to do with? You expect someone to step in if trouble starts, right? Clint's voice was calm, but his presence dominated the room. So did my characters. The only difference is they didn't wait for permission. The crowd reacted, some with laughter, others with applause. Ethan forced a chuckle. Ethan decided to go all in. You've built a career on playing tough guys, but in reality, you're just an actor. You're not actually that guy. In a real fight, wouldn't you just be another old man? The room fell silent. Clint didn't blink. He just smirked. I played tough guys because people like you wouldn't. The audience erupted. Cheers, applause, even gasps. Ethan's face darkened. That's not... Ethan started, but Clint wasn't done. You spend all day criticizing people who stand up for what they believe in, Clint continued. Me? I spent my life making films about people who do something about it. That's the difference. The show's producers scrambled as the audience's reaction grew louder. Ethan, flustered, tried to regain control, but the damage was done. By the time the show ended, the internet had already begun its work. Within hours, social media exploded. Hi, Clint Clapback was trending worldwide. Clips of the interview racked up millions of views. Memes flooded the internet. Clint's stoic face over captions like, "Get off my lawn, kid." Ethan's show was suddenly the wrong kind of viral. Even mainstream media outlets picked up on it. Talk show host tries to school Clint Eastwood, learns a lesson instead. Eastwood proves he's still the baddest cowboy in town. Ethan Rhodes thought he had a takedown moment. He had a career moment instead. Ethan's team was in full-blown damage control. "What do we do?" Jenna asked the next morning, pacing his office. Ethan scrolled through his phone, his name trending alongside words like humiliated and embarrassed. His face was red with frustration. We spin it. Say it was taken out of context, that we were just having a lively debate. Jenna sighed. Ethan, it wasn't just the words. It was the way he handled you. You went in expecting a frail old man. You got Clint Eastwood. Meanwhile, Clint was entirely unfazed. When a reporter caught up with him outside a restaurant and asked about the viral moment, he just chuckled. Wasn't the first time. Won't be the last. And with that, he walked off, leaving behind yet another legendary Eastwood moment. By the time Ethan Rhodes left his studio that night, the internet was already eating him alive. Clips of Clint Eastwood's legendary clapback were circulating across social media at a breakneck pace. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Every platform was flooded with memes, reaction videos, and side-by-side comparisons of Ethan's smug, pre-show confidence versus his defeated expression by the end. One tweet summed up the sentiment perfectly. Ethan Rhodes thought he was about to humble Clint Eastwood. Instead, he got a free masterclass in masculinity. It wasn't just conservatives celebrating, moderates, older movie buffs, and even some liberals found themselves siding with Clint. Something about an old-school Hollywood legend shutting down a smug talk show host resonated with the public. Meanwhile, Ethan's own fans were scrambling to defend him. Some claimed the clip was edited out of context. Others insisted Clint's views were outdated, that just because he sounded cool didn't mean he was right. But the damage was done. The morning after, the Ethan Rhodes Show's YouTube channel had an unprecedented spike. Not from fans, but from people rewatching Clint's takedown. The interview segment was now the most watched video in the show's history for all the wrong reasons. Ethan sat in his dimly lit office, his phone buzzing nonstop. His producer, Jenna, paced back and forth, a tablet in hand. It's bad, she said bluntly. Networks are picking it up. Fox News is calling it the most satisfying moment in television history. Even CNN is running segments on how Clint handled you like a pro. Ethan scowled. I need to respond. We need to get ahead of this. Jenna hesitated. How? If we frame it as a misunderstanding, people will just replay the clip. If you go after Clint again, it'll look desperate. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. I'll put out a statement. Something like, I have deep respect for Mr. Eastwood, but I believe his views reflect an era that Hollywood has evolved past. Jenna shook her head. That's not going to work. The internet doesn't care about nuance, they care about moments. And the moment everyone remembers is Clint making you look like a fool. Ethan slammed his fist on the desk. Damn it! He's 94 years old. How did I lose control of the conversation? Jenna sighed. Because he never needed to raise his voice. He didn't argue. He dismissed you, and that's way more powerful. Ethan exhaled sharply. Then we go on the offensive. Find dirt on him. Something that makes him look bad. Jenna gave him a pointed look. Ethan, you're really about to start a smear campaign against Clint Eastwood? Silence. Ethan slumped in his chair. He knew it wouldn't work. If anything, it would make him look worse. For the first time in his career, he had been outmaneuvered. Meanwhile, Clint Eastwood couldn't have cared less. While the world buzzed about his viral moment, he was at his ranch, enjoying a quiet morning with a cup of coffee. His assistant, Bill Gaines, scrolled through his phone, chuckling. "Sir, you're trending again." Clint raised an eyebrow. "That a good thing or a bad thing?" Bill smirked. "Depends. If you like memes of your face with captions like, 'Go ahead, punk, make my podcast,' then yeah, it's good." Clint shook his head with a quiet chuckle. "Internet's a funny place." Bill hesitated before asking, "You want to respond? Maybe put out a statement." Clint leaned back in his chair. "Nope." Bill looked surprised. "Nothing at all?" Clint took a sip of coffee. "Why would I? The kid did all the talking for me." And that was the difference between Clint and Ethan. Ethan was scrambling, desperately trying to control the narrative. Clint? Clint knew that sometimes the best move was to say nothing at all. News outlets had a field day with the interview. Pundits debated whether Ethan had gone too far in trying to cancel a Hollywood legend. Others praised Clint for standing his ground without resorting to insults or shouting. Podcasts broke down every moment of the exchange. YouTubers analyzed Clint's body language, calling it a masterclass in composure. One particularly viral clip compared Clint's silence during Ethan's questions to an old Western standoff. The caption read, "Ethan had all the bullets. Clint had all the aim." Ethan, meanwhile, was losing ground fast. Advertisers started reconsidering sponsorships. His team noticed a significant drop in ratings. Viewers who had once cheered his takedowns were now questioning whether he was just another arrogant host trying too hard to be provocative. His show's social media pages were flooded with comments. "Apologize to Clint. You tried to take down a legend and got schooled. Eastwood's movies will outlive your career." Ethan tried to ignore it. He told himself the controversy would die down, but deep down he knew he had underestimated Clint Eastwood, and there was no coming back from that. A week later, a reporter from Variety caught up with Clint at a charity event. "Mr. Eastwood, you've gone viral again. Do you have any thoughts on the reaction to your interview with Ethan Rhodes?" Clint gave a small smile. "Never been much for internet trends." "Some are calling it a defining moment. Were you surprised by the way it played out?" Clint shook his head. "Nope. Do you have any advice for Ethan Rhodes after everything that happened?" Clint paused, then smirked. "Yeah, next time, bring a bigger gun." The reporter laughed. The internet exploded. And Ethan Rhodes. Well, let's just say his show was never quite the same again. In the weeks following the interview, the Ethan Rhodes show saw a sharp decline in viewership. Sponsors pulled back, networks grew wary, and public sentiment never fully recovered. Ethan tried to pivot, bringing on friendlier guests, even attempting a half-hearted apology on air. But the internet had already moved on. His moment of humiliation was immortalized. 6 months later, his contract wasn't renewed. The show was quietly canceled. Ethan retreated to podcasting, but the damage to his reputation lingered. No matter what he did, he was always the guy Clint Eastwood humbled on live television. As for Clint, he went on promoting his latest film, unaffected by the storm he had left in his wake. Interviewers tried to bring up the viral moment, but he never gave them more than a smirk and a shrug. At an award ceremony, a young actor approached him. "Mr. Eastwood, that interview. You showed everyone what real strength looks like." Clint chuckled. "Kid, I just answered a few questions." The legend had spoken, and that was enough. And so, as Hollywood continued to change, as social media moved on to the next scandal, one truth remained. Clint Eastwood didn't just win the moment, he became the moment. Don't miss out on more captivating stories like this. Subscribe to Tailcraft on YouTube for all the latest videos, join the conversation, and stay tuned for more.